Hello, my name is Erica, and I'm one half of VOCE Collective, a collective dedicated to participatory photography, photo voice, and archive. Today, we're very happy to be partnering up with PhotoVoice Worldwide to bring you a series of videos where we share best practices and tips from other photo voice projects and participatory photography projects.
My name is Laura. I'm co-founder of PhotoVoice Worldwide, and this video series supports our mission of peer-to-peer continuing education and community.
Hello, everybody. Today we're here with Holly Atkins and Rhondda Waddell. They're both professors at San Leo University, located just outside of Tampa, Florida. We're very happy to be having them both here today because they're going to share with us a little bit about their experience with Photo Voice and their tips and best practices with us. So, first question for you. I would like to know a little bit about your experience with Photo Voice.
Well, I'll start out. I began doing photo voice about 2 years ago, and Holly and I actually took a training with Laura Lorenz, and that really spearheaded what I was trying to do in my research class. I teach a social work research class, and I use it embedded in the class with my students as part of the class project. And I've also used it in research, doing actual community-based participatory research.
And for me, I'm chair of the undergraduate education department at the university. And the idea of social justice and both personally and professionally being an agent of social change has always been important to me in my work. And it informs what we do in preparing our students to become future educators.
I know that you've been working with students about talking about the difficulties or the experience of people who are not native speakers of English and their experience at school. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We partner with a local elementary school, which does have a great number of students for whom English isn't their first language. And we felt that Photo Voice was a wonderful tool to help these students for whom language is a barrier in expressing their perspectives, to break down that barrier and to help empower them and to be able to share their voice regarding what school is like for them.
And then one of the projects that I know you've tapped on, it's with veterans. So maybe Rhonda, you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. A lot of veterans in America come back and they have struggled with reuniting into civilian life. And we have what's called a veteran stand down, which allows veterans to come for a week-long event, and they get resources and they have a brotherhood experience with other veterans. And it's a very large community event. And we have our MSW and our BSW, so our bachelor's and master's level students engage in work with the veteran stand down, and there they get a chance to work with the veterans, they get a chance to work with their faculty, and they get a chance to work with their classmates, which they may not get to do in a virtual setting. So we wanted to look at how they experienced it and what they were able to benefit from in terms of that experience with the veteran stand down.
And so in our shorter interview, we tipped about the 3 tips that you'd like to share. So I know that you had a little more to share about that. Would you like to go a little more in depth on your tips?
I can start off. I think the idea of this sensitivity, especially if you see both of the projects that Rhonda and I just talked about, we're involved right there with 2 very vulnerable populations. So for my work with the elementary schools, many of these families, they're immigrants. And so we need to really be sensitive to their legal status and also to the idea of vulnerability. I think Rhonda hit on that, taking photographs that have personal meaning also can lead to some sensitivity and vulnerability. So for the researcher to establish that culture of trust is absolutely critical.
I will add to it that Holly touched on strengths, and we had been talking about that together, how very important it is that we not only look at the problems and try to help solve the problems that are occurring among the populations we're working with, but to look at their coping skills and their supports and be able to identify strengths that they already have and highlight those, because a lot of people that are vulnerable and have weakened voices have a lot of other strengths that they bring to the table and can help in creating change.
Thank you so much. It's been so interesting to talk to you up until now. So in terms of challenges, like you've really touched on this just now, talking about these projects, what's something that you overcome during your projects, and how have you been able to overcome it if you had any issues?
Oh, of course. There's always some challenges. They continue. Some of mine or the pragmatics. The conversation I had with a fellow budding photo voice researcher, she wants to work with young children too. How do we take these photographs? I'm not sure I want to put my smartphone in the hands of the 5-year-old. So I shared, well, we did it old school. We used disposable cameras and we had film developed. So I think sometimes those pragmatics can be some challenges. Young students, when we ask them what's important to you about school, may want to take photos of individuals because they're making those connections. So so working with young kids to see, well, it doesn't have to be the teacher, but it could be something that you associate with the teacher, right? Like the desk, things like that. But again, those kinds of things can be challenges. I also talked about working with families whose legal status in the United States may not be a permanent situation. So those types of legalities and things with the IRB are definitely challenges that have to be considered.
I also think that for a lot of people that are just starting out doing photo voice, it's a little uncomfortable sometimes getting the consent and being able to take pictures and getting their participants to take pictures and being able to explain to them how to take pictures safely and appropriately. That's a challenge. Especially with students, they not sure how to address people and talk to people about putting a photo in front of them or a camera in front of them. So both looking at the picture and talking about it and taking the pictures can be challenging for students in particular.
It is so true. And I second both of your points, definitely. And what about a surprising outcome? What's something that has really made you go like, wow, I did not see this coming. I did not expect this, but it was actually a beautiful surprise in your projects?
I will say that, and this was a conversation Holly and I had recently, is I think it's important for people to realize that any particular topic can be emotional for people. I had a group of students that were going to ask some women that were older why they missed their chance to go to college, and wasn't really thinking this was a very threatening question. All 3 of the participants they talked to broke down and cried during the conversation. I think that, you know, we are emotional beings, humans, and all kinds of experiences impact our lives. And I think this work minds that and allows people to have these cathartic experiences.
And I think the word that comes to my mind that has been both intentional and a pleasant surprise is the sense of empowerment. I think Rhonda and I both, one of the things we're drawn to this type of work is because we are very participant oriented as researchers, but there's layers of this empowerment. So for the participants that are actually taking the photographs and for our university students, I've seen this wonderful sense of empowerment from our budding researchers. Many of the students that I'm working with right now at the university um, are currently employed in early childhood centers. They don't necessarily see themselves as being empowered and of them having a voice that's valued. They don't see themselves as agents of social change, but they've developed projects that are so much a connection between the heart and the head. And they're starting to see their role not only at the early childhood center, but about truly impacting society in a broader scale. So that's a beautiful thing to see that develop.
Absolutely. And how did you come to know PhotoVoice? What has been your path with PhotoVoice?
Well, always getting into wonderful trouble with Rhonda, who literally walked into my office one summer. I was minding my own business or trying to, and she said, "Hey, I've got a great project for you." And that was, as Rhonda said, participating in Laura Lorenz's Photo Voice series of classes. I think Rhonda knew how much this would really resonate with me. So that taking that class with Rhonda, with Laura and participants that were all over the world, that really launched me into being involved with Photo Voice.
Yeah, I will say that one of our final tips was about gratitude. And I think this work allows you to have the most gratitude for all the collaboration that occurs within a Photo Voice project. And getting involved with Laura and getting involved with people at our university on all different levels has just opened up a whole new way of our collaboration. And I'm very grateful for the experience.
Same, absolutely. And since you work with students, so what's their reaction like in your classes?
Well, again, I think they're thrown off at first. There's a sense of disequilibrium. This is a research class, and we're taking photographs, and photographs are a form of data. But it's when it's that disequilibrium that opens up the door for true learning. So once they're thrown off a little bit, then I try to, provide that support there. And then again, it is very empowering for them because this taking photographs and images is a very natural part of what we do in our daily life, but they don't necessarily connect it with research.
Yeah, I think for my students, the beginning, like Holly said, I mean, my class is a 16-week class and Holly's is an 8-week. So her students get slammed really fast with the whole process. Mine can ease in a little bit. And I tell them, you know what, for the first 6 weeks, you're just going to be a little confused. And then after that, you're going to have that aha moment. And then you're going to own it and you're going to build it. And you're going to be so proud of yourself at the end for what you've learned, what you've discovered, and how you might have made a little bit of difference and been a change agent. So it's been a really fun process to see people go from that kind of tabula rasa of what to wow, you know, it's a beautiful process.
And what are your future projects looking like? Or if you don't have any, what is your dream photo voice to do?
Well, my future project actually began in a conversation I had in my driveway on my phone with a fellow faculty member. Uh, as I alluded to, this sense of empowerment with these early childhood education students has been a wonderful thing to see develop. So what we would like to see is really to research that development. So as they engage in our classes on photo voice, how how is their perception of themselves as change agents and researchers, how is that developing? So it's actually going to be a study about those who are engaging in photo voice projects.
Right now, my students are engaged in photo voice research in my class, and they are really focused on the pandemic and different aspects of the pandemic. And one of them is how has the pandemic affected students' learning in terms of the remote learning versus the in-classroom learning. And then the one project that I just love is how has COVID affected love relationships. And so they're using the photo voice to look at different levels of relationships and how this has changed the dynamics of those relationships. So I think that's certainly something I'm doing right now, but I also am interested in animal assisted therapy, and I'd like to use photo voice to engage with animals and humans and the dynamics that go on there as well.
Very, very interesting. It was such a pleasure to talk to you both. Thank you so much for making the time to share with us today. And yeah, thank you very much and see you soon.